Don't let this worn-out hat fool you. Behind it lies a brilliant business mind. This young black boy, Bernard, works as a shoe shine boy, but notice where he sets up shop, right in front of the bank. It's no accident. His customers are all wealthy white businessmen. But he's not interested in the pocket change he earns polishing their shoes. He works deliberately slow, listening carefully to the financial secrets these men discuss while they wait. The moment they leave, he scribbles everything into a notebook. What he's really after is the priceless financial knowledge spilling from their conversations. Even at this tender age, he knows his destiny, to become a banker. This is Texas, 1939. A place where black people face brutal discrimination at every turn. His father tells him the painful truth, his dream is impossible. But Bernard's eyes burn with determination. He refuses to give up. 15 years pass. The now grown Bernard moves to Los Angeles with his wife, Eunice, and their children. The racial hatred here isn't as fierce as back home, so he decides to build his empire here. The family of 3 squeezes into a cramped utility room belonging to one of his relatives. Still, Bernard promises his wife they'll have their own place soon. He starts working as a real estate agent, scouring the city for properties. Through careful observation, he spots something others miss: the black neighborhoods are packed tight, while white areas have countless empty homes. Black families have both the need and the money to rent, but there's no market connecting them. This is his golden opportunity for real estate investment and rental income. He discovers a white-owned apartment building with weeds choking the entrance, clearly neglected. But Bernard sees what others don't: its location borders the black community. He approaches the owner with an offer. "You've only got half your units rented. Why not sell to me? I'll give you $30,000 now, plus another 5 once I fill every room." The owner respects his vision but won't take the risk. Bernard nods in understanding. As he turns to leave, his eyes catch something: a calendar on the wall from a local bank manager. An idea sparks in his mind. He heads straight to the bank and tracks down the manager who sent that calendar. The manager's secretary, dripping with prejudice, refuses to let him through. Bernard waits hours by the bank entrance. When the manager finally emerges, he intercepts him immediately. "I know one of your important clients. The business I'm pursuing will benefit him greatly. I need you to approve a loan for me." The bank manager dismisses him without a second thought. That evening, his phone rings. It's the property owner. "Did you use my name trying to secure a loan?" Bernard has no choice but to apologize. Surprisingly, the owner isn't angry. He's impressed by Bernard's relentless determination. He decides to guarantee the loan himself. Bernard secures his very first bank loan and purchases the property. An elderly white woman returns home from shopping to find a black man at her doorstep. "What are you doing here?" she snaps sharply. "I'm renovating the apartment building," Bernard replies calmly. The old woman's face twists with contempt. "Workers like you better be careful." "Don't worry," Bernard responds smoothly. "This is my building. I'll take excellent care of it." The woman stands there, speechless, before storming inside. Within the hour, police arrive. They tell Bernard an old lady reported him, asking if he's pretending to be the owner. Bernard calmly pulls out a copy of the property deed. He anticipated this trouble and came prepared. The officers realize the building truly belongs to him and leave, clearly irritated. That night, when Bernard returns to the building, the same old lady sees him and screams at him to leave. "It's not renovation hours." Bernard replies calmly once more, "I'm not a renovation worker. I'm the owner." The woman stands frozen in shock. Days later, she moves out in fury, unwilling to share a building with black people. The moment she leaves, Bernard rents her unit to a black tenant. Just as he predicted, the demand is enormous. The building fills up fast, and Bernard delivers the agreed payment to the former owner. The former owner is thoroughly impressed and proposes a partnership. Bernard will select the properties and calculate the profits. The old owner will handle negotiations and sign the contracts. That way, white sellers won't know they're dealing with a black man. They'll split the earnings down the middle. Bernard agrees immediately. Their partnership thrives, and money pours in. Bernard moves his family from that cramped apartment into a beautiful mansion, finally giving his loved ones the life they deserve. This is his genius: when someone discriminates against him, he doesn't fight back with fists. That would mean playing by their rules. Instead, he plays by his own. Logic, economics, and maximum profit, those are his ultimate weapons. But life doesn't always go smoothly, and challenges can strike without warning. The former owner, Bernard's partner, is elderly and frail. A few years later, he dies suddenly. His shares in the company pass to his wife, a woman who despises black people and refuses to work with Bernard. She makes him a humiliating offer: sell his shares at a fraction of their worth, or she'll take him to court. In that era, when a white person and a black person face off in court, who do you think the judge favors? Bernard refuses to accept such injustice. He decides to fight in court, but he needs someone to testify and prove his partnership with the old owner. He thinks of the bank manager, but the manager has already sided with the widow and now avoids Bernard completely. Standing in the bank lobby, deeply disappointed, Bernard looks around. This clean, orderly building reveals the teeth of systematic discrimination everywhere. Just because of his skin color, he's met with contempt every time he walks through these doors. As he thinks about this, a bold plan begins forming in his mind. There are 4 banks in this one building, and each has slammed its doors in his face. In that moment, a stroke of genius hits him, I'll buy this entire building. Then let's see who dares discriminate against me, Bernard finds Joe, another successful black real estate developer in Los Angeles, and shares his plan. At first, Joe thinks he's lost his mind, the building's value is astronomical, and no black person has ever purchased property in downtown LA. But as they talk, Joe realizes Bernard isn't some delusional dreamer. He's a sharp, rational strategist. Why does he want this building? Simple, once he owns it, the banks inside will have to serve him. They won't dare refuse his loans. They'll have to share real estate trends with him, making his business run even smoother. Joe is stunned by the brilliance of it. After thinking it through, he's convinced it'll work. Despite his own wealth, he's still pushed around by white people everywhere. But if he can stand on white-owned land and look down on white bankers, he'll make even more money. However, they still can't negotiate directly with white sellers. They need a white frontman. Bernard already has someone in mind, Matt, the guy who's been helping him with renovations. He's honest and ambitious, just a bit inexperienced. So Bernard and Joe begin training Matt from the ground up: golf, high society etiquette, mathematical analysis, real estate valuation. Matt rises to the challenge. Soon he's confidently playing golf while calculating property values on the fly, looking every bit like a young, sharp entrepreneur. At a golf club, Matt meets the owner of the bank building. Of course, this chance encounter is carefully arranged by Joe. The conversation goes well. Matt earns the opportunity to purchase the building. Now comes the real negotiation, but Matt doesn't know how to handle it. Don't worry. Before the meeting, Bernard prepares Matt for everything. He counts how many lights are on in the building after dark, calculating the vacancy rate. Then he determines the building's true value using annual revenue and operating costs. Bernard anticipates every number that might come up and drills Matt on them until he knows them cold. During the negotiation, no matter how much the owner exaggerates about his property, Matt stays one step ahead, firing back with exact figures. The owner is stunned. His accountant sits there dumbfounded. They think they're facing a mathematical genius who can't be fooled. In the end, Bernard acquires a building initially priced over $2.4 million for just $1.56 million. From that day forward, whenever Bernard walks in or out of the building, the president of every bank rushes to shake his hand. The same manager who once made things difficult for him now stands there, speechless. With the banking industry's full support, Bernard and Joe's real estate empire explodes. They single-handedly break down Los Angeles' strict racial housing barriers. Young, successful black families start moving into white neighborhoods. Before long, they're even invited to meet the vice president. Several years later, in 1963, Bernard brings his family back to Texas to visit his father, Britton. After dinner, Britton tells Bernard how proud he is of everything he's accomplished. The next day, Bernard walks through town with his son. Without realizing it, they end up standing in front of the very bank where Bernard once worked as a shoe shine boy. Texas remains the most racist place in America. They see a young boy shining shoes, just like Bernard used to. To his surprise, the boy only works on white people's shoes. This small moment strikes something deep inside Bernard. It awakens his sense of responsibility toward his community. He quietly vows to change things here, to help black families in his hometown secure better housing. The next day, Bernard visits Joe and tells him they should buy the Mainland Bank in Texas. Joe thinks Bernard's completely lost it. The racism in Texas is too extreme. But Bernard lays out compelling reasons, and eventually, Joe agrees to help. They recruit Matt again to serve as their frontman. They meet with the bank's owners, Robert Florence Sr. and Jr., to discuss the deal. Despite Jr.'s suspicions, Sr. sells the bank to Matt and his so-called partners. With Mainland Bank in their hands, Bernard gets to work, helping African Americans in town get loan approvals. His goal is clear: give his people a fair shot at homeownership and financial opportunities. For a while, everything runs smoothly. Then Florence Jr. starts investigating the loans their bank has been approving. One day, he follows Matt and discovers him meeting with Bernard and Joe. He confronts them about the loans and threatens them with a letter from the U.S. Treasury Department, warning that the bank will be inspected within a month. After Florence Jr. leaves, the three men discuss their options. Matt suggests they buy another bank and transfer the problematic loans from Mainland to the new institution. They consider purchasing the Bank of Marlon Moore. Bernard points out the main issue: overseeing operations. Matt volunteers to run the new bank himself. Bernard is uneasy about the idea but eventually agrees, letting Eunice keep watch over Matt. Matt gets his wish and begins running the bank. The next day, he meets with a lawyer and starts signing loan contracts on his own authority. Sometime later, Matt receives a call from Florence Jr. Clients are withdrawing all their money from Mainland. To make matters worse, a federal bank examiner arrives at Marlin to audit Matt's operations. Bernard is forced to disguise himself as a janitor just to stay close during the meeting. Unfortunately, it makes no difference. The examiner uncovers serious problems with several loans. Bernard is shocked. These absurd loans shouldn't have been approved. Eventually, they learn the truth. It was Florence Jr.'s doing all along. While rushing to operate his bank, Matt skipped proper protocols and used a lawyer recommended by Florence. Through him, Florence planted the fraudulent loans. Later, Bernard and Joe tell Matt the most logical move is to walk away from the Bank of Marlin. But Matt, unwilling to lose his bank, makes a desperate move without telling his partners. Joe learns about it the next day and rushes to Mainland Bank with Bernard. They confront Matt about the loans while Florence watches the chaos unfold with a smug grin. Bernard demands Matt retrieve their records, but it's too late. Federal bank examiners arrive to revoke Mainland Bank's license. As they leave the building, the FBI arrests Bernard and Joe. Bernard tries to argue, but it's a losing battle. Soon after, Bernard and Joe meet with their lawyer. They discover their case has become tangled in the nation's racial politics. Meanwhile, Matt speaks with Senator Mullen about testifying against his partners in exchange for his freedom. That night, Matt wrestles with his decision. He makes a phone call. Following Mullen's advice, Matt testifies against his partners at the Senate hearing the next day. Later that day, Bernard also meets with Mullen and hears his proposal. He's given a choice: take an immunity deal and confirm Matt's testimony, or speak the truth and go to prison. In the end, Bernard decides to say the words he's held in his heart for years. He speaks openly about racial discrimination in America. Shortly after, both Bernard and Joe's fortunes are destroyed following the hearing. They're sentenced to federal prison. Florence Jr. purchases Mainland Bank for a tiny fraction of what Bernard and Joe paid. Meanwhile, Matt Steiner is never charged with any crime. Several years later, Bernard and Joe are released from prison. Eunice finds it strange that the two men seem happy despite losing everything. But they haven't lost everything. Joe reveals that they own properties right next to each other in the Bahamas. Eunice is stunned and asks Bernard how that's possible. It turns out the person Matt called the night before his testimony was Bernard. He told him about the senator's deal and apologized. In return, Bernard asked Matt for one favor: to move certain assets before the government could seize them. The film ends with this revelation: Bernard and Joe's residential properties played a crucial role in the fight against housing segregation in Los Angeles. And to this day, they still own two mansions side by side in the Bahamas.